Starting the recording right now.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm calling into order this special board meeting. And Ms. Douglas, will you please call roll?
Certainly. Chelsea King.
Present.
Kirsten Wyatt.
Here.
Christy Thompson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we are together today to talk about the bid award resolution for the new Athey Creek Middle School at Dollar Street. And we have your memo, Remo. Thanks for putting that together and the supporting documentation. And I'd like to, if it feels good, to hand it over to you so you can let us know what you want to just, what you want the public to know, or what you want to highlight before we make a motion and ask questions.
Sure. Thank you, Chair King. Yes, we have our bid result from last Wednesday afternoon for the new Athey Creek at Dollar Street project. We had 5 pre-qualified general contractor bidders on this project. One firm elected to not bid because between inclusion on the list and the bid date, they were awarded several other contracts, and so they elected to withdraw. So we had 4 bids come in. 3 of them were in scale and in the industry, what I would call extremely close together, the 3 lowest bids. That is a big confidence booster for the validity of the bids that we're receiving. If we had 3 separate contractors all come to a very similar conclusion, that's a very good sign that they weren't missing something as a low bidder and that sort of thing. The low bidder that we're recommending award to is Emmerich Construction Company. They are a substantial firm. As I said, they were pre-qualified. They do a lot of school work. They do a lot of hard bid work. And there's a high degree of confidence in their ability to pursue this project. And so you've seen in the memoranda the various numbers there. This bid did come in under the estimate, which is good. There was some concern over the year of, did our estimate from last spring, how valid was that still? We've been keeping in touch with our estimators and other parties in the region that track estimating. And there was a high degree of confidence that the estimate was still good. And to the extent that the bid came in below estimate, that would seem to confirm this. And the price that we received also does not contemplate a few $1 million in reimbursement that we expect for some additional street work that we're doing for the benefit of the city of West Linn. And when you factor all of that in, we're within $1.5 million of the original base construction budget that we set several years ago, anticipating this work before we got into COVID and all of these things that increased costs substantially. So from our viewpoint, this is an extremely successful result. By the time we get that reimbursement from the city of West Linn, we expect at this time that little to no money will be needed to be brought from any other projects to complete this project. So this really is a significant mark of success of the design process that happened, all of the efficiencies work that we did to bring the estimates down and in turn the bid. So with that, I'm open to any questions the board may come up with when in deliberations.
All right, thank you, Remo, for putting this together and just for the work that went into getting this. I know this is a huge project, a very large percentage of our capital bond. I think a good place to start would be to have a motion. So I'll move that the board pass resolution number 2021-07 to award the project for the new Athey Creek Middle School at Dollar Street.
And I'll second.
Okay, so the board chair with the motion, Vice Chair Thompson with the second, and are there questions?
I did have one question, and I was trying to find it in the memo. It had to do with, Remo, in the memo, you talked about something about not doing a first round of, now I'm trying to find it. Sorry, I've got my laptop and then I'm looking at the board book on my phone. Something about them not doing the first round of bidding, and that was normal.
Yes, I think I'm familiar with what you're searching for. So
And
maybe I'll
I wasn't
speak
sure what that
briefly.
meant.
Yeah,
And I
so-
can't find the exact terminology that you used.
Yeah, so I know what you're asking about. I
Okay.
believe. So what we're talking about is called first tier subcontractor disclosures,
Yes. Can you
which is a
explain that
whole
to me?
mouthful. But what it is a form that the contractors are required to submit within 2 hours of submitting their bid. And it outlines the major subcontractors that they are intending to use and the value of those subcontracts. And what often happens is you get the bids in, and then the lowest 2 or 3 firms will typically take the time to review all the subcontracts, make sure they're solid, and then fill out those forms and submit them. And usually after 3 or 4, if you're kind of up there and the likelihood of the bidders ahead of you being invalid in some way, if that risk goes down, then the contractors simply don't bother to keep someone in the area for 2 hours and fill out the paperwork and submit it. That makes them ineligible to get the contract. But if you're in 5th place, there's almost no case where 4 contractors ahead of you will be disqualified and then you're going to win. And so that was the reasoning for making that statement. 2 of the 4 firms elected to not submit those forms, and therefore they're not eligible for the contract. But as both the first and second bids were deemed valid, there's no loss or risk to the district in them not submitting those forms.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And so as soon as contractors submit the bids, do they all find out what everyone else's bid is so they know kind of where they are? And then at that point, they decide, is it worth it for me to submit that? Thank you. Okay, that makes sense to
Precisely.
me now. Okay.
Yeah, so the bids were due at 5 o'clock last Wednesday. And we stand there from about a quarter till, and we're looking at, cars sitting in the parking lot that we don't recognize with people sitting in them. And in the last 3 or 4 minutes, they all rush in and they get their envelope stamped and they've got their bid in. If someone came in at 5 o'clock and 30 seconds and handed us a bid, we would hand it back to them unopened and refuse to accept it. So it's incumbent on them to be timely, which of course they generally are. In this case, no bids were late. And then by about 5:02, we all agreed that it was in fact beyond 5 o'clock and that we had received 4 bids. And then we go to somewhere where we can all sit, and I get out the letter opener and I open each of the bids and I read every number on the bids aloud. That's part of the public requirement that you have a public bid opening, so that there's no perception of malfeasance related to the bid opening and award. So each of the firms has a representative there, and they're frantically scribbling down all of the numbers as we read them out. And so while we don't say who is the apparent low bidder, because we've not done all of our due diligence at that time, there's obviously a strong correlation between being low at the time of bid opening and award.
And again, it's not going to affect whether my voting for this, but I just wanted to understand what that meant.
Yeah.
So I understood the process. So thank you for explaining that. And that is the only question that I had, Chair King.
Sure.
All right, thank you. I do have a handful of questions, and while I totally respect the process that you went through and that we're following the typical lowest responsive competitive bid, I think also we've been moving toward a larger discussion over the years of some other factors. And so my questions are related to some of those things we've been talking about for some years, particularly as I think, is this maybe 20 or 25% or something of our entire capital bond budget? So it's a significant contract to be awarding. So my first question is related to district goal number 1. And I'm curious if Emmerich Construction Company has a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement or anything along those lines.
Sure. So as briefly mentioned, this was a alternative procurement method to the extent that we pre-qualified bidders, and then we had the competitive straight bid. And so each of those firms was required to submit on a number of criteria, including inclusiveness as well as apprenticeship opportunities. And so Emmerich did speak to it. They had about half a page of their document that they submitted speaking to their inclusive practices. So yes, they have a program around that.
They have a statement around their inclusivity practices. And then you mentioned, I didn't see it on their website, so maybe I just didn't miss, maybe I missed it. That's nice that they included it in their bid. You mentioned an apprenticeship program, and we just passed this policy DJC, and so I know that we're going to be working on bringing a resolution before the board at early next year. So these questions don't necessarily apply to this bid, but they've been so relevant to the discussion we've been having. And you did mention apprenticeship program. Can you tell me a little more about what Emmerich Construction Company is doing with apprenticeship?
Sure. Perhaps I'll read off a couple of highlights from their document that they had proposed with, because I think it will answer some of these questions. So regarding diversity and apprenticeships, they promote diversity in contracting and employment through engaging with a variety of diversity and inclusiveness programs in the area. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations that are working to connect big general contractors with various subcontractor pools. They're heavily engaged in that work. Their contracts to MWESB firms in the last 4 years exceeded $38 million. Their past project apprenticeship participation rate averaged 20 to 24% of their work hours. They participate, host, and sponsor a number of annual events they call Meet the Primes events, which is referring to prime contractors or general contractors, essentially seminars in opportunities to get to have small emerging businesses get to meet some of these larger firms, get to interact with their estimating staff, and learn how to be successful at submitting bids with some of these larger contractors. And they also host their own independent, just Emmerich specific workshops, bringing in a number of small firms and just having an open dialogue with their leading estimators and working through, step by step, this is how they submit subcontract bids to Emmerich. They also spoke in their proposal about breaking up projects, meaning breaking up subcontracts into multiple pieces in order to give some of those firms an opportunity, even on larger projects. It gave a lot of confidence to me in answering that criteria of the pre-qualification process. To have $38 million in MWESB firms in 4 years. That's a lot, and spoke to their commitment.
Remo, for those listening who may not be familiar with some of the vernacular, could you explain what MWESB stands for?
Sure. Yeah, that's technically that specific acronym is Minority and Women-Owned Emerging Small Businesses. The acronym, as with many acronyms these days, continues to grow, and folks have sort of just let it remain truncated. But that also involves disabled and veteran-owned businesses as well, generally in common usage. And it speaks to a class of contractors that are relatively young, small business. That emerging small business term is key. And whether or not they go through the formal certification process to achieve that technical definition, we're seeing area general contractors focusing a lot on developing relationships with those new young firms, which has been great to see as part of these pre-qualification processes.
Thank you. Looks like we have a question from Director Wyatt.
Yes, and Director White, is it okay if I just finish one more question and then I'll yield the floor?
I just had one quick point of clarification, and I appreciate your question, Director King. I was pleased to see that the president of the executive board for the Portland Workforce Alliance, which is a group that's really promoting student engagement in career and technical education, is actually from Emmerich Construction. And so pleased to see that it's not just a statement that they put in their bid, but also, a practice that they're living. And my experience with the Portland Workforce Alliance is that they are definitely aligned with the policy that we just passed. And so just wanted to point that out as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I think I have one more question. Thanks for letting me ask several in a row here. When we start to work on this resolution for next year, one of the things that we discussed last Monday that we passed was that this resolution could specify requirements for the contractor to clarify their health plan. And I apologize, I didn't give you much advance notice on this, but in practice for what we'll start to do after that resolution hopefully is passed, do you know anything about the type of health plan that Emmerich Construction provides for their workers?
I do not. We don't have any specific comments. I did reread through. That would be kind of into the details beyond what they would typically propose with. Certainly, I would expect that they're compliant with law, and employees of a certain number of hours and all those sorts of things they'd be required. Pursuant to the eventual creation of or designation of community benefit contracts, the district will need to consider for each contract that might be designated what those levels of apprenticeship and what the health plan requirements would be. That would be on the district to define that, which is something we've not done before. And so there would be some time and consideration needed to figure that out, learn what is reasonable, practical, and achievable, and kind of weighing the pros and cons of what levels one would put in and for which contracts we might use those. It's entirely possible that stringent requirements like that could actually create barriers for some of our emerging small businesses who don't have some of that office complexity. Those are conversations and studies that I would look forward to, but will need to be thoughtful as how we go about it in order to have the intended impact.
All right, thank you. Director Wyatt or Vice Chair Thompson, do either of you have any further questions or comments?
I'll be supporting this resolution, and I just want to give thanks for the careful thought and work that went into this. It's always, to me, it's a true superpower to be able to budget and estimate a project of this scope and size, and then have the bids come in so close to what we're anticipating. And I'm also just always taken by how all-inclusive this project is. And so as our community looks at all of the things that are included in this very large price tag, and the end result being a brand new middle school, I mean, it's really impressive. So thank you for your work and getting us to the point where we are able to make this decision.
Chair King, if I may, last week presented a quarterly report on the whole financial outlook of the bond. And I know there's a lot of questions, but I'm going to tee Remo up again to describe how this project brings us closer into alignment with the overall budget. So if you could speak to that, Remo.
Yeah, so I'll respond to Director Wyatt and then dovetail right into that. Speaking to a project coming in close to budget, that was not a small thing on this project. This is a significant project. It is complex. And Rebecca Grant and Rebecca Stuker at IBI Group and all of the team that worked underneath them, as well as our project manager, Angela Caffrey, put an incredible amount of time into this project. And we've talked about, changes in cost and schedule and things related to bond. And we've seen some of that, obviously. But the biggest impact in the office here is the number of hours it takes to get this done. These folks are working very, very hard, and they're working long hours. And the success that we have today through this contract is due in no small part to their commitment to get it done. We met with our civil engineers last Friday, and I thanked them time and again. Getting a job like this designed in a way that's very efficient for earthwork was very complex, and they worked long and hard at it, and they worked a lot longer than they thought they were going to. But in the end, we've got a bid that we can afford. So just want to say that I'm the one who shows up and you see my face on the screen, and I was certainly involved, but those three gals were the true leaders of this project. And as we talk about inclusiveness, to have those three women and as the true project leads for a project of this size and to have it go so wonderfully well, I think is telling of the success that you can have. In terms of the program budget impact, Angela and I went through the project budget this morning, and we reduced the estimated cost of completion by over $1 million this morning as a result of this bid. We believe there's more to come, but we're waiting for contracts to be executed, to get the earthwork well underway, to be ensured that there's confidence there. And that doesn't account for a few $1 million in funds that we expect to see from our partnerships with the city. So in time, this will be a multi-million-dollar reduction to the expected cost to build the program. Well, right now.
Dr. Ludwig was going to say something, and I think maybe Vice Chair Thompson too.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask Revo to speak to what Pat McGuff just asked him to speak to. We had this report on Monday, and there was this chart, Remo. And I think when citizens look at the line that says new middle school at $1 and they see original budget 78 million, approved change, so how does someone now read that chart and come alongside hearing now this public bid process and understand, will they see something different? Will we see something different written in the chart next month or next quarterly report than what we've got there, which has that original budget number?
Right. So yeah, what I was hoping to get there and perhaps failed to was we just reduced the expected cost of that project by over $1 million this morning as a response to this bid. We expect that number will increase, will improve further in the coming months as we get into the contract and we develop a confidence that the bid does in fact cover everything, that we're getting, the earthwork is commenced, that we're not finding anything unexpected underground, all of those sorts of things. So what the community should expect for a fourth quarter 2021 is to continue to see the financial trajectory of the program moving towards balance. I don't know that the program will show balance just yet. There's a whole lot of things in the next couple of weeks that we'll be diving through. But we are overall seeing success across the program. Wilsonville High School's auditorium project is coming up out of the ground. We've discovered what there is to discover underground already. We did okay financially in that portion of the project. We believe that's on good footing. The other projects from this year are also performing as expected. And so we should continue to see that estimated, or what we say in the report, forecasted over under, that overage will continue to decrease.
So I might just chime in, when we build a budget, there are many unknowns. So you place a lot of money in trying to cover the potential for those unknowns. As the projects begin to take shape, those unknowns become known, and that the uncertainty disappears. And that's what we're seeing here.
Vice Chair Thompson, did I see that you had a hand up earlier?
All I was going to say is I was just going to reiterate exactly what Director Wyatt said, like agree with everything she said. So that's it.
Yeah, I also echo what Director Wyatt said. When I saw that bond report from Kim Jordan and the photos and everything, this school is going to be a showstopper. It is, the photos are gorgeous, and the amount of projects that are going, it's a huge price tag, but the number of projects that are included under this big project are enormous. So it's, it'll be around for many, many, many years to come. And I'm very pleased with the process that went into this as well. It's been a very long public process as well, with receiving input on the design and all the things that went into this. So I'm very excited about it.
Yeah,
And please thank your team, Remo. Sorry to interrupt. Please thank the women that you described. Please extend the board's gratitude to them as well.
I will certainly do that, and I've given them mine time and again in the last few days. And that community connection is very important. Of course, we started some of the prep work towards the construction a couple of weeks ago, and there was, we'll say, high community interest in that activity. And so that 2 weeks ago, I spent about 30 hours of my week out standing in the street, talking with anyone who wanted to talk, answering questions, and going over, what was happening, what the next steps were, where's the sports field going to be, where's the school going to be, those sorts of questions. That neighborly conversation needs to continue throughout this project. It will not be quiet. There's no way to do this silently. And we need to do a good job engaging with those neighbors throughout the construction. And we've started that passing of that torch from me as the primary person that folks are talking with to Angela as the project manager. The contact information that we're putting out is to her phone, to her email. And while I'll certainly be involved, as with past projects, when we get into this phase, we start turning it more and more to the project manager to answer those questions, as Angela will be the person that can most directly connect and engage with the contractor and address any concerns that come up. So we'll continue to see that, and our commitment is still very much there. We need to finish strong in the community engagement aspect of this project. We've got another, 2 years from now, we'll be wrapping up. So lots more to do on that front.
Okay, thank you. So it seems to me that we're ready to call a vote.
Okay, thank you. Chelsea King,
Aye.
Christy Thompson,
Aye.
Kirsten Wyatt.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody who's present today and for all the good questions. And thank you, Remo, and your team. And
Congratulations.
yep.
We're going to build a school.
Hey, so
Yay.
We're gonna
exciting.
build a school.
Yes, thank you to our public for funding this
Yeah.
amazing project.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.